it water with the sheep in the box?
Hello everyone, thought I'd just do a bit of an unscripted video today because I'm halfway through making what looks like it's going to be quite a long and complex video about anarcho-capitalism, and I thought rather than make this into a full scripted video, I'd just do a quick unscripted one for you, just because I don't think I have really enough to say to justify making a full video essay, but I did also want to get my thoughts out there. So I may do a few more of these in future, just giving my thoughts on a specific topic every now and again. So if you do have any suggestions for those, feel free to leave them in the description or join my Discord and go into the content suggestions channel and leave suggestions there. So today I wanted to talk about this phrase and all of the controversy that it has generated. The Cishets are not okay, or sometimes just separated out. So sometimes it's the straights are not okay, sometimes it's the cis are not okay. And it's used to mostly joke about toxic behaviour coming from cishet people. It does sometimes piss cishet people off, but quite frankly, the LGBTQ+ community has spent decades, if not centuries, being attacked and denigrated for who they are, so I think they can probably take it. But what I want to talk about is the philosophy and the underlying reason behind it, or in other words, why the cishets are not okay. Because like everything, it's not simply just a case of this group of people is wrong or bad or whatever, in the same way that white people sometimes have the same thing done to them, and sadly a lot of us are very, very fragile. So in essence, the reason we say the cishets are not okay isn't because the individual cishet people are not okay, or that they're in some way degenerate or something, which is ironic. It's because of the systems under which we survive and under which we exist in the Western world. Allow me to explain. We're taught from a very young age to follow certain specific gender roles, and that there are certain gender and sexual expectations within the standard paradigm, and of course there's social norms as well that we need to adhere to. This of course is the sort of thing that leads to things like toxic masculinity, wherein men feel that they need to measure up to society's imagined made-up idea of what a man should be, sometimes taking it to absurd degrees in really rather harmful ways. Whereas we on the LGBTQ+ spectrum are generally less confined by those expectations, those norms, those restrictions, I suppose you could say. Not because we're inherently better or less manipulable or in some way a higher form of intelligence or anything like that. It's very, very simply just the fact that by our nature we reject the paradigm because we are forced to, because often LGBTQ+ people are ostracized from cishet society and from cishet spaces by dint and by virtue of their identity, be that sexual or gender. And what this means is that since we are already outside of the established paradigm, it is easier for us to embrace and accept different or more healthy norms and expectations, and to be honest, to realise that the norms and expectations that we've been taught since we were children are kind of arbitrary and bullshit. The more you interact with LGBTQ+ spaces, the more you sort of start to realise that actually being ostracized from mainstream ideas of what sex and gender are can actually be liberating or freeing in a way, because it forces you to reevaluate what you think these things can be and what they should be. Now, it doesn't always work. Obviously, there are definitely toxically masculine gay men or trans men, and there are definitely non-cishet people who do fall well within the social norms and gender roles and expectations drilled into us since birth, but by and large, the LGBTQ+ community rejects these ideas and these norms. Likewise, this rejection by society, or at least parts of it, tends to make us less likely to want to conform to it, because, quite frankly, if someone's telling you to go fuck yourself, why would you want to do anything that they tell you to? Likewise, being on the receiving end of a lot of hostility from people within the system and within these norms and expectations, as I mentioned, does go a long way to really opening your eyes. And the way I often see it is that people in the LGBTQ+ community see firsthand the injustice inherent to the system, which obviously is more likely to cause a lack of respect in it, or for it, I guess. After all, if you're, for example, a gay man, you perform all of the traditionally masculine ideals and yet you go off and kiss boys, that will often mean that you're ostracized from large portions of the male experience and from male spaces, because a lot of people are very, very homophobic, either consciously or unconsciously, and you may often find that other men may feel uncomfortable around you or treat you differently, even though you are exactly the same as them, bar one or two differences. And likewise, gender is probably a more stark contrast, honestly. So a trans person, for example, can perform and can display masculinity or femininity in any way they like, in all the traditional and expected ways that cis people are told is the right way, and yet they are told that they are not the gender that they say they are, even though they do everything that we're told that people of a specific gender do. And the more you think about it, and the more you talk to trans people, and the more you sort of think about what makes a man or a woman or whatever, the more you start to realise that it's just bullshit. Because whatever definition of femininity or masculinity or whatever you decide to use, it will exclude very definitely male or female people regardless. So what's even the point at that stage? And when you realise that gender is a social construct and, as I said, pretty fucking arbitrary, you start to think about it and like, why are we doing any of this shit? Why shouldn't I just play around in this area? Why should I bother conforming to or performing a certain kind of masculinity or femininity if it's all just fucking arbitrary anyway? And the fact that I suck dicks means that I'm probably going to be rejected by society either way, so balls to it, why not just say fuck the rules? So what's my point here? Well, mainly I just want to say that when people say the cishets are not okay, it's a moral indictment of the way our society encourages us to act and view the world as seen by those who were placed outside of society's norms against their will. Because from the outside looking in, the way we in society view relationships in general is so fucked. It's not a critique of heterosexuality or cisgender people, it's a realization that the norms we so blithely ignore are insidious and harmful in the long term. And I see a lot of confusion around this because a lot of people, usually cishet people, seem to think it's some kind of attack on straight people or cis people, when in reality it's a criticism of the systems we exist within. And I think that often goes unexplained or misunderstood, and I just wanted to set the record straight here.
Is it water with the sheep in the box?
Right, well, that was the first of these videos. Well, technically not the first, I've done a couple before, but this is the first I've decided to make into a series. So anytime I get a small thought and I decide to do a long Twitter thread on it, usually I'll end up making one of these as well, just because I feel it's important to discuss these things, but again, it's not really worth the time and effort making a full video essay about something as banal as why do we say the cishets are not okay. Anyway, thanks for watching, I hope you tune into the next one, and my next full video essay will be Anarcho-capitalism is a garbage ideology and here's why, and it should be up shortly. Thanks for listening.